Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeffrey Sachs from the Agnon House. I recently had the great privilege of taking a group of travelers through Beit Agnon to walk in Agnon's footsteps and in the footsteps of Jewish life and literature and learning in Germany. This is one of the great pleasures of my job, that I get to organize and run and travel on these expeditions to all different types of places to explore Jewish life and culture. And among the great privileges of this work is to be able to travel with such wonderful and interesting and intelligent and engaging people, such as my friend Jay Shapiro, together with his wife Rivki Rosenberg, and so many others. And they've been with us on a number of trips to Ukraine and other destinations. And on this trip to Germany, Jay told a story which was just so enchanting that many of the travelers on the group asked him to record it. And I'm sure there are many other people that would like to hear it. And we're very glad to make this available. And I hope this will become the first of a number of installments of different things that we encountered along our travels that we will try to make available to the wide range of those of you that follow our activities at the Agnon House. And of course, we hope to let you know soon about other opportunities to travel in the coming year. When we were in Germany, friends of ours on the trip, Wendy Zieler and Daniel Veit, had a really remarkable opportunity to visit a United States military cemetery in Germany, where American soldiers who were killed during World War II are interred. Among these soldiers was Wendy's uncle, for whom she is named, who was an airman shot down during the war and buried in an American military cemetery in Germany. They weren't exactly sure where the grave was. They went and they found it, and it was a story which perhaps we'll have to record on a separate occasion. And when she came back from this very moving experience of finding this uncle's grave, she described, what military cemeteries look like. I'm sure you've seen or been to Arlington, row upon row upon row of white marble crosses, and one lonely grave with a Magen David, a Jewish star on it. And that was her uncle, and she told the story, and we were all very moved by it. And after hearing this story, our friend Jay Shapiro asked for the microphone because he had a story to tell. It's the story of the dog Finkelstein, and a remarkable tale it is. So I pass the mic to you, Jay, for the story of the dog Finkelstein.
Thank you, Jeff. I have to admit the story is strange, but every word is true. I was living in a community called the Ginot Shomron, and I had a dog, a female dog, and we're quite happy with one dog. One day, a strange dog began to scratch at our door. So I went out. There was this little dog. It was a male, and our dog was a female. So I wasn't looking for another dog. So I gave the dog something to eat, and I chased him away. For a number of days, the dog kept coming back and scratching at my door. So finally, I figured I have no choice. I'll let the dog in. I let the dog in, and although he was a male and my dog was a female, they got along great as a separate couple. Both of them were living independently in my house, and the dog was very nice. I called him Roly Poly because he liked to roll over on his back. It was a very good-natured dog. One day I came home from work, and to my shock, it turned out that Roly Poly had bitten a delivery man. And the dog had never done anything like that. And the delivery man had taken him to a place in Ramla where they keep dogs for 10 days to check whether or not they have rabies. And the delivery man took the dog to Ramla, and he brought back the receipt. So I looked at the receipt, and first of all, I was very shocked that my dog actually bit somebody. I looked at the receipt, and I saw the 10th day was on a Shabbat, when I couldn't go and pick up the dog. So I called them, and the secretary answered the phone. She said, "You can come on Friday morning." That Friday, my son Yossi, my older boy, was home from the army, So I said, Yossi, come with me and you can keep the dog in the back seat after we pick him up. So we drove down to Ram. When we went in, the secretary said, good, good, I'll get permission from the doctor. She went into the vet. The vet came out very angry and he said, who told you can come back today? The 10th day is the most important day when we check a dog for rabies. Come back on Sunday. And he kicked us out. So it was early Friday morning. I was with my son Yossi, which meant I would have to go home and help my wife with the getting ready for Shabbat, which I wasn't about to do. So I said to my son, I noticed many times I passed, there's a huge British military cemetery right off the highway in Ramleh, and there's a huge cross there. I knew it was a cemetery. I said, let's go see what's in the cemetery. So we walked over, and it's a very fascinating place. I advise people to go there. A lot of history there. There are people buried there from the First World War, from the Second World War, during the British Mandate. The two people that Begin hung are buried there. And I found a row of graves from the First World War, all Jewish graves, all marked with a Magen David. And we walked along, and we suddenly came to a grave named, in the Jewish graves, his name was Gershon W. Finkelstein. On his grave was a cross,
On the
which didn't have
grave of Gershon W. Finkelstein, of
on
course.
his stone, on his tombstone, Gershon W. Finkelstein, with the date he died November 1917. I don't know how he died. I never found out. At any rate, with a cross. So I contacted the military attaché at the British Embassy in Tel Aviv, and I said, I think there's been a mistake. With a name like Gershon Finkelstein, he doesn't get a cross. A couple months went by, and I get a letter from the military attaché, and he said, you're right. He's Jewish, he's listed as Jewish. When we contact his family in England, what to put on his grave, nobody answered. But we accept your recommendation. We will change the stone. We will put a Magen David. And they once a year they bring all these new stones to the cemetery. They have a big ceremony, and invited my son and me to the ceremony, which we attended. Now, I took the English date on his stone. I checked out the Hebrew date, and I began to keep his yahrzeit and say Kaddish for him. A few years went by. I don't remember how many years, and I happened to be in England on business. So I figured I'll see if I can check the records. So the British keep very good records, and I found this place in London that a guy named Gershon Finkelstein was born in Leeds, England in the late 1880s, which means that must be the guy, because he would have been in his early 20s, would have been in the army. So I contacted the Jewish community in Leeds and I asked for information, and they wrote back to me. They have absolutely no record of Gershon Finkelstein, but if any information shows up, they'll contact me. A period of time went by, I don't remember, it might have been a couple of years. I get a letter from the Jewish community in Leeds, and it said somebody in Portland, Oregon is looking for Gershon Finkelstein. So I contacted his family in Portland, Oregon, and they sent me information. Turns out during the First World War, the family that lived in Leeds moved to the United States. So when they contacted what to put on his grave, nobody answered. Now, years later, the next generation was looking, whatever happened to this guy they knew. So they began looking in British records, and they looked at British cemeteries in Europe. It never occurred to them to go look at the cemetery in the Middle East. So they sent me all kind of pictures of him and records about him. I even wrote a little story about him. I used it to raise money. So here I was saying Kaddish for Gershon Finkelstein. So one day I decided, I happened to be in England, and I found out again that it was some Leeds, and it was the Gershon W. Finkelstein. So people in my neighborhood heard this story from me. So it became known that my dog had arranged for this guy to have this stone changed on his grave. So we had a neighbor, a Yemenite guy, and he said to me, "There's something kabbalistic about this story. It can't be that a guy's buried under a cross for 7 years, and you get him out. I want you to go to speak to a kabbalist about this." So reluctantly, I went and I told this kabbalist, this Yemenite kabbalist, the story. So he thought about it for a while, and he said the following to me: Gershon Finkelstein died. Nobody said Kaddish for him, and he had a cross on his grave. So when he got to wherever the neshamas go, wherever his souls go, they said to him, "You can't get in. Nobody's saying Kaddish. You have a cross on your grave. We will send you back so that you will solve your own problem." So Finkelstein apparently said, according to this Kabbalist, Finkelstein said, "I don't want to go back. If I go back, I'll do the thing that all human beings do. I'll talk lashon hara. I'll do sins. I don't want to go back." So they said, "Okay, Finkelstein, we will send you back in a body where you can't talk lashon hara, you can't do any of those. We're going to send you back as a dog." So that dog that knocked on my door was Finkelstein. This is what the
reincarnated.
He reincarnated as a dog to solve his problem. So everybody, I told the story to everybody in the neighborhood. So whenever I went walking, I was walking with these two dogs. So every time I went walking with the dogs, so everybody would say, "There's Jay walking with Finkelstein." So everybody, I began to call the dog Finkelstein. Now, the end of the story, it was sort of interesting. I don't know what the average age of a dog is. I think dogs live 10, 11, maybe 12 years. From the moment the dog scratched on my door to the moment that he died, and I buried him in my backyard, was 18 years. He lived high years in Eretz Yisrael and was buried again in Eretz Yisrael. Was that Finkelstein? Anybody's guess.
But you certainly didn't put up a cross over the dog's grave, that's for sure.
No. He's buried in the back of my house. I sold my house, Menini's buried there. My son, who makes films, he went to the school here in Jerusalem, Ma'aleh, to make films. So he made a film about it, and an 18-minute film, and he submitted the film to the British Museum of War History, and it won a first prize.
Is that film available anywhere online?
What?
Is that film available anywhere online?
I'm not. My son.
We'll have to check.
Excuse me?
Well,
I have a here on
we
my,
should say that, of course, Jay, your son, the filmmaker, is the well-known Lazy Shapiro, who our listeners might know is responsible most famously probably for the series Srugim, which of course was so well watched and well beloved. That's a fabulous story. At the time, on the evening that you told this story, to the thrill of everyone on our trip to Germany, I mentioned that it's actually reminiscent of an Agnon story. Agnon has a story in Hebrew called HaMashal vehaNimshal, which appears in his u-Meloah. In English, it's called The Parable and Its Lesson, which appears in a standalone volume translated by my late friend, James Diamond. And it also deals with this question of a Jew who's improperly buried under a cross and the adventures that have to take place to redeem him and get him to where he belongs. So this was a fabulous story. It was really one of the highlights of our trip, and all the people on the trip to Germany this summer asked that you record it or you write it up. So here you go. And it's just one of the very many fascinating things that we encounter, and the wonderful people and the great raconteurs that travel with us. And we hope we'll have a chance to travel again with Jay and Rifki and so many others and new friends that we'll meet as we go about on our journeys with Beit Agnon. So Jay Shapiro, thank you for the story of Finkelstein the dog and the incredible tale of Gershon Finkelstein and your role in bringing about redemption to the soul of that poor Jew who fell here in the land of Israel in 1917.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.